Welcome, listeners, to www.IronRadio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. With your hosts, Lonnie Lowry.
Remember, Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree held together with scar tissue and bone spurs.
Rob Fortney.
And I'm telling you, the pain that I would suffer was beyond excruciating.
And Phil Stevens.
Do it, Rob. You'll kill all those nerves.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome, IronRadio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry. I'm an exercise physiology and sports nutrition professor of about 15 years, and I'm a former competitive bodybuilder.
This is Phil Stevens, powerlifter, Highland Games athlete. I run Strength Guild, amongst other things.
And we have Christine Bongiovanni and Branch Warren with us, pro bodybuilders. Many listeners are aware of them or their names in some way. But Christine, maybe just a sentence about yourself.
Good morning. I am a professional bodybuilder who hasn't competed in quite a while, but now I promote events and am starting bodybuilding events and am getting into the fitness expo world.
Sweet. And Branch, people know who you are, I think, but maybe just a description about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a pro bodybuilder. I've been a pro since 2001. Won a lot of titles along the way, and started promoting contests about 11 years ago. And did my first one down in Houston, which I still have, and just living the dream, baby.
Sweet.
Lifting weights, eating chicken and rice, and flexing at people.
Sweet. Yeah, I had a couple of students, Branch, I should tell you. I mentioned just to one or two students that we would have you on the show, and they are geeking out because some of my students will listen to the podcast, so they're going to be excited. Okay. All right.
Some young meatheads.
There you go. There you go. We're going to skip the usual listener mail and news, everyone, just out of, interest of time. I will say this is episode 400. Woo.
Wow.
So, yeah,
congratulations.
We've been at it a while.
Yeah, at a while. Yeah. And so, yeah, good guest for episode 400. So I will say one thing. If you are part of the fall contest and social media thing, mugs and T-shirts and all the kind of reward swag has been sent, so have some patience. You'll get it in just a couple of weeks. All right. Let's start with the brief origin story. And Christine, you've been on before, but let's start with you just quickly about how you got involved, right? I mean, both of you are pro bodybuilders, but let's just talk about whether it's the competitions or the move toward promotion. Just a little bit about your origin story.
So back from the beginning, is that what you're meaning?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know what? I got into the sport because I was pregnant with my first child and was no longer able to really participate in group sports. So bodybuilding was the answer for me. I was working out at a gym where that was what was present, and so I thought I'd try it and just see if I even enjoyed it, and I got hooked and loved it, turned pro in 95, and it obviously was a path for me. At the time, I was a graphic artist who got laid off during Desert Storm, so it was a path for me to develop my own business. And then after I quit competing in 2000, basically because the sport of women's bodybuilding was kind of falling apart at that time. And so I quit competing, and for health reasons as well. And the way for me to stay involved was we actually, unfortunately, had a promoter that passed away, and I took on his 2 shows, and that's kind of how it kind of just made sense. Right. I love the athletes, like helping them out, and so that's where it went.
It's great to have you on the show, too. I can tell you we have a growing number of female listeners that are very serious about powerlifting competitions and physique and whatnot, so it's good to have women examples, of course, too.
Nice.
Yeah. Branch, I don't know what we can say about Branch. Multiple Arnold Classic winner. I believe, are you still sponsored with Gaspari Nutrition? Is that correct?
No, I actually just signed with Black Skull.
Oh, okay.
Sports nutrition. Yeah, I did it this last week. So very happy to be on board with them, and I've got some big things coming, working on right now together, and so we'll be announcing here shortly. So, of course, I've been signed with Gasp for Gas clothing out of Sweden for the past 8-9 years, and I just got a couple other contracts I've signed too, and Hazard 4 tactical bags, and but with Bicycle, we got some real big things happening, and so over the next few weeks, we'll be making some big announcements.
Oh, sweet, yeah. Let's have just a little bit of your origin story, or maybe a lesser known fact. Like, why do you do what you do?
Why I do what I do? I just love to bodybuild, man. Everything I have, I owe to bodybuilding. It taught me the work ethic, and it gave me the discipline to be successful, not just in bodybuilding, but in life and in business. So, I love being a bodybuilder, and I love the sport. I love the training. I love the process of getting ready for a show, and I love game day when it's time to get up there and battle it out. So, bodybuilding it's like being a race car driver. You get all the driver gets all the fame and the credit, but it's still a team sport. Without his pit crew, he never gets across the finish line. So bodybuilding's very similar.
Right.
Without my wife and my trainer and some friends and stuff, you probably never make it there. So in that regard, it's a team sport, but then it's also an individual sport because it's all you in a sense too, because it's how much you put into it and how bad you want it.
Right.
So,
how young were you when you started? Was it a high school thing or?
Man, I tell you, I grew up in West Texas and on a cattle ranch, and I think the closest neighbor was like 8 miles away. So my best friend was a German Shepherd. So we were like way out there, and I was going to be a bull rider, because everybody I looked up to back then, they were cowboys, like the real deal. And I was like, shoot, I'm going to be a cowboy. I'm going to win all the money, get all the cowgirls. It's going to be good. And but somewhere along the way, when I was in high school, we moved to Fort Worth. And the town I grew up in until then was, we barely had enough guys to have a football team. So if you tried out, you made it, just because there just wasn't enough people. And the two best-looking girls in the school were my cousins. So Fort Worth, life got a lot better. And I'd seen a bodybuilding magazine before. Actually, the first bodybuilding magazine I ever saw had Rich Gaspari on the cover. And, so I became a fan of his early on because of the more I read about him, not just because of his physique, but because of his work ethic. And he probably wasn't the most genetically gifted guy on the stage, but, because his, work ethic and attitude and, his attention to detail, he was one of the top guys during his era. So,
yeah.
I didn't have any money for a gym membership when I moved to Fort Worth, and I knew I needed to work out to get bigger, to make the team, play football. And so I met this kid in the neighborhood. He used to go in, and he had a membership. He'd open the back door, I'd slip in, and I did this all summer. I did it every day, and like 6 days a week. And so I went there so many times that everybody just kind of got to know me. So one day I just walked in the front door, and they waved at me, and I waved back, and I worked out. So during this process of this summer, I met this bodybuilder there, and that was huge. He's about 5'10", 5'11", about 280, 290 pounds, and a national level bodybuilder. And his name was Mark, and he kind of took me under his wing, showed me how to work out right and properly. And I gained like 20 pounds that first summer, just training and halfway eating right, and for a 16-year-old kid. So he said something to me about I made the team and played football, and then that next summer he asked me, hey, you ever think about competing? And he took me to a show, and I saw what the teenage junior division was like. I was like, man, I could do that. And this is just at the beginning of the summer. So he said, man, I'll train you for the show if you'll do the show during the summer. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So he goes, we're going to go to a real gym. I'm like, well, what do we got right now? He goes, man, this ain't a real gym. So he picked me up the next morning and drives me down across town. And we pull up in front of Metroflex. Well, this guy turned out to be Ronnie Coleman's workout partner. And we walk in the gym, and of course he's got these big warehouse doors open. The music's so loud you could hear it in the parking lot. There's people in the parking lot squatting and doing lunges in the parking lot. And I meet Brian, who owned the place, and trained Ronnie and this guy Mark too. And he said, I told him, hey, I want to do this show, but I can't afford a membership. I'll clean the place up for you, work something out with you. for membership. And he said, "Let me see what it feels like." He took me over in front of the mirror. I hit some poses. And he said, "I'll tell you what, kid." He said, "You get ready for this show and represent the gym, and you win because you don't got buy membership." He goes, "If you lose, we can work something out." I was like, "Deal." And that was 24 years ago, and I still haven't bought a membership.
Wow. Wow. So you were sort of sponsored from the first time you started bodybuilding, in a sense.
I was. I was. I didn't. To me, I was I was happy because, man, we didn't have any money. I was a 16-year-old kid. I couldn't even afford to get a gym membership back then, and I worked, but I had to help out pay bills at home, so I was like, shoot, I got to win this thing because I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to freaking work extra to pay this off. So, at the time, I didn't realize how fortunate I was, but to have somebody like Brian and to get to train with, Ronnie and this guy Mark for my first competition, because these dudes killed me. They were grown men. I was a kid, but I trained real hard. I didn't ask any questions. I just whatever they did, I did, and I trained till I threw up, and I wouldn't quit. So I think they liked that, and so they let me train with them, and that's how it all started.
Sweet. Wow, that's an awesome story. I think in a lot of ways, lucky. I mean, obviously you're gifted physique-wise, but to have people sort of, letting you in the gym and sponsoring you and that kind of stuff, at least as far as, I mean, I think a lot of our listeners can probably identify, you work sort of, you do some of the chores in the gym, cleaning the locker room or whatever, and, work your way in some way. But I think you were fortunate that you were really exposed to some pretty hardcore, high-end people fairly early on. Is that fair to say?
Man, I was very, very fortunate. I think it's life is kind of, sometimes I think everything happens for a reason, but the people you surround yourself makes a big difference on how your life turns out too. You surround yourself with successful people, and I think if you're a hard worker, then you're going to have success too. So I was just very fortunate to be at the right place at the right time in a lot of ways, and it all worked out. So
yeah,
I had a blast, and it was good times.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression of you has always been that you're a really just sort of no nonsense, hardcore kind of guy, And I mean, like you, I grew up. I was watching Rich Gaspari, super impressed. He was my favorite guy for years, In fact, but you have this sort of hardcore image. I think is that because of the people that you started working around? I mean, everybody knows Ronnie Coleman's, a balls to the wall kind of lifter too, and that sort of thing. Did they form your training philosophy?
Absolutely. It's my training philosophy is kind of a combination of of Ronnie's and Brian's, and this guy Mark actually was the hardest trained dude I've ever seen in my life. He was actually bigger and stronger than Ronnie back in those days, and he trained like a complete psycho, man, and just like nuts, man. And he was a psycho, man. This gym was a rough gym back in the day, man. There was fights all the time. It was crazy, but these dudes, that's why they trained. And so I was like, I just thought that's what everybody did, and that's what you're supposed to do. So, over time, I developed kind of my own style, and later on, me and Johnny hooked up, and I'd gotten into powerlifting, and of course, he was a big time powerlifter, so we kind of came up with this kind of power, bodybuilding style of training, and we just ran with it. It was fun times growing up in that gym. It's kind of tamed down a little bit back there, but there weren't too many gyms, especially hardcore bodybuilding gyms back then, and so everybody trained there, and it was cool. I think the time I was 19, I beat everybody in the gym except for Ronnie and Mark.
Oh, wow.
So they had like this big show. It's called the Lone Star, and that was like the biggest show in the state. So I won the team nationals, I think, the year before, and there was Jay Cutler, Caprice Murray, Ronnie St. Cloud, all these guys were in it that year. I won the overall, and then so the next year I got ready for the state show, the Lone Star, and went in the Open, and of course the Metroplex is where all the best guys came from. Everybody was in it, and so I think I beat everybody in the gym. So when I came back into the gym on Monday after the show, Ronnie and Mark were relentless on these guys. Like, man, you got your ass whooped by a teenager. So, that was pretty funny.
Right. Okay, let's fast forward before we go to the break and we get into our topic of the day about fitness expos and whatnot. Let's just fast forward. Is there anything happening with you today, whether it's, competitive, business related, just sort of highlights about what's going on with Branch Warren right now?
Right now, competitive-wise, I haven't competed since the Arnold of last year, March of 2016. Right now, competitive-wise, I don't know what I'm doing. I took a long break just because I needed it, physically and mentally. I hadn't had a break in years and years. And not getting any younger.
Yeah.
Wasn't happy with my conditioning at the Arnold last year. I was off a little bit, admittedly, but I don't know as far as what's in store for this year. I haven't made a decision yet what I'm going to do, if anything. So stay tuned, and I'll keep you posted on that. As far as on the business side, I've got several shows I'm promoting. Christine and I are, we're doing a show June 10th of this year in Minneapolis. So she's taking the state show, which she's been promoting for a number of years. It's established. We're going to add an expo. My show's in Houston and Dallas. We've been doing super show expos. So you have the NPC bodybuilding, fitness figure show is the centerpiece of the show. But then you have an expo with lots of vendors. You got multiple events like CrossFit, powerlifting, strongman, arm wrestling, these type of events. And we even had midget wrestling last year, which was like the hit of the show. And it turns out to be a fun day. We make it a family atmosphere. We have face painting for the kids, bounce houses, all these things. So,
wow.
It's a family event, and it's a lot of fun.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll tell you what, everybody, let's go to break. When we come back, we're going to get into the topic of the day. We're going to talk about those kinds of expos and this expansion from bodybuilding into expos, and we'll be right back.
Hey listeners, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowry. If you've ever had anyone critique you on your protein intake as part of your weightlifting lifestyle, oh, you poor meathead, all that extra protein is going to rot your kidneys or weaken your bones or dehydrate you or give you gout or who knows what. There is a book available. You could simply Google CRC Press and Lowry. And what I've done is reach out to experts all over the world and create a book, a single compendium that you can hold up and say, this is why I consume extra protein. This can be very valuable when you're being quote-unquote educated by various professionals on the topic. There's an enormous amount of literature in this book on the safety, the effectiveness, how protein works in cells, the history of protein and weight trainers, much more. So again, please check out CRC Press and Protein and Lowry. You can just Google that, and I do, full disclosure, I do make a small single-digit royalty on the book, but that's not why I did it. I did it so we can all have something, our particular population, to both defend what we do and to inform our nutrition and our eating. Thanks.
Like your weekly fix of Iron Radio? In addition to being a popular institute on iTunes, we are also on email. Simply go to www.ironradio.org and sign up for the voluntary email. You'll get a once per week email, no more. That's little more than the show notes and a link to the audio. So go for it.
All right, everyone, we're back. It's Lonnie and Phil, and we have Branch Warren and Christine Bongiovanni, professional bodybuilders, and we're going to talk about the expansion of bodybuilding events into fitness expos. And I was partly interested in this because I'll tell you, and Christine and Branch and Phil, you too, I'm sure you guys all remember back in the day. I mean, I went to the Arnold Classic when it was in the Veterans Memorial Auditorium there in Columbus a couple of times, and the expo portion of the event was just a couple of booths downstairs, you know. That was back when like Sean Ray and Lee Labrada and those guys were competing, and but the expo thing was almost an afterthought where you had a couple of the competitors selling apparel, or once in a while they kind of reach out into a supplement line. You guys remember those days, but those days are gone. I mean, like the Arnold Classic, which is now the Arnold Fitness Weekend, I think, so expanded. So my first question is for you, Christine. Why is this happening?
You know, if you look at the sport of bodybuilding and the NPC, the National Physique Federation, they expanded it out into a more mainstream group of athletes that could actually compete. Women's bodybuilding was disappearing, or was getting to a point. Honestly, I talked to the president at that time, Wayne D'Amelia, about women's bodybuilding, because we had one of our Miss Olympias that I was training for and multiple women were training for got canceled. So we had this long conversation, and the word bodybuilding means bigger, harder, and it's really hard to keep that feminine. I've had many discussions with judges about, sitting at the judges table at a national show and having an argument with a male bodybuilder or a male judge who is picking the biggest, hardest, and not looking at the whole package. It's just the way bodybuilding is. So opening it up to first fitness, and then figure, and then now bikini, it's just given so many more women the opportunity to actually get involved and compete in a physique sport. And so I think it's a great thing. And then along with the fitness expos, actually my first pro show was the invitation to the Arnold Classic by Jim Lorimer and Arnold, and it was actually, the Ms. International is the women's portion of it, and it was amazing. I mean, I was just totally astounded by what they were doing, and always dreamt of being able to do that. And so I think that the fitness expos are just, it's an opportunity again to open it up to all the different sports and expose everybody to some cross training.
Yeah, right. Well, let me ask you, Branch, then. I mean, obviously you think this is a good thing as well. You're co-promoting these sorts of things. And why do you think the expansion to fitness expos is good as opposed to just trying to keep things pure bodybuilding?
To me, it was a natural step whenever, they like Christine said, when they came up with the new divisions, first they had fitness, and then they brought in figure and everything, and now, bikini and then men's physique. And so you start reaching a much broader group of people than we used to. And it appeals to a lot more people. Not everybody can be a 250-pound monster on stage or, the female bodybuilder. So when they open up these other divisions, we appeal to a lot larger segment of the public. So, I'm a true believer in everybody needs to do something. Not everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but everybody needs to be active and, do something, because you look at our country, how many people are overweight, so, CrossFit, all these other powerlifting, strongman, all these other events, we start off with a powerlifting meet, when we're looking for ways to try to expand our show, reach more people, and have a better event. And powerlifting was a natural fit. So our first time I had a show, my first bodybuilding show I promoted, we had a powerlifting event with it, and then we added strongman to it, and then went to CrossFit, and I had a CrossFit event, and then just kept it going. We have arm wrestling championships and all these other events too, and we just kept it going. Anything that's fitness related, we try to grow it and make it to a fun day. And I want to try to reach as many people as I can and bring them into the fitness world, fitness community.
Right.
And I think because of that, we expose a lot of people to bodybuilding and fitness and physique and whatnot. And I think we picked up a lot of competitors, by doing that. So people see what it's all about. And if you've ever been to a bodybuilding show and you're watching it, it's very motivating. If you sit there and see some of the physiques on stage, even to this day, if I go watch a show, especially a pro show, I get motivated.
Yeah.
To go back to the gym and train harder. So I think reach it and bring in a lot of other people that would never be exposed to that is actually help grow the sport a little bit more down here. And so I started talking to Christine, and actually she contacted me and kind of brought the idea up of doing something in Minneapolis, and I think it's a perfect fit. It's a huge market up there, and it's an untapped market for that kind of event, and I think it's going to be a hit.
Right. Okay, this question is not on my list. It's a tangent, but you're making me think about this a little bit here. You've always trained so heavy. Have you done powerlifting yourself ever, competitively?
Yeah, I have. So back in the days, I tell you, when I was I went to from about 19 after that competition I told you guys about earlier. I was going to school, so I had to work my way through school. I worked 3 jobs and to get through school, pay my tuition. You know, I was living on my own and everything. So getting ready for a bodybuilding contest probably wasn't in the cards for me at that time because, you know, I just didn't have the time to devote to it. So that's when I got into powerlifting. You know, I didn't have to train as many days a week as I did, you know, for bodybuilding, but I trained, you know, different style training, trained heavy, and most importantly, I didn't have to do the diet, which it's expensive when you're eating all that chicken and steak and everything. So I still ate good, but not, you know, so much as like a contest prep diet. So yeah, and the powerlifting, Brian got me into it. Brian and got Mark, because you know, all those guys powerlifted.
Oh,
so
cool.
I powerlifted for a number of years, and it actually, I think it was a blessing in disguise because that's when I really put on a lot of weight and I got that thick, dense look that I was known for.
Yeah, that base.
That's an interesting story, Branch, because that's the same reason basically that I got into powerlifting. I was going through a time in my life when I could not be in the gym 5-6 days a week, so I started powerlifting. I could go 3 days a week. You know, I could add a 4th if I had time on a week, and it definitely put me up to the point where I could compete nationally and turn pro. I mean, that's the best way to put on muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's no substitute for. I don't care what all these people say in their new freaking fangled diets and training methods and bullshit. There ain't no substitute for hard ass work and heavy weight.
Heavy work.
Period.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We've had Ed Cohn on the show before, and Phil knows Ed pretty well, and that's something that he sort of emphasizes regularly, right? Heavy weights make you big. You know, you're right. You see new research come out about, you can increase muscle protein synthesis with sets of 23 to 30 repetitions, and the science actually looks pretty good, but then I don't know, the proof is kind of in the pudding when you look back over the years. The biggest, hardest competitors, a lot of them have that really heavy powerlifting-esque background.
That's
you
it.
know.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's, you know, I mean, Ronnie did it. You know, who was bigger than him and harder than him? You know, Johnny did it. I did it. I can sit here all day and name off athletes that train that way. And that's how I got my base and foundation. And so at the time, it was, you know, going through those years when I was going to school and working on those jobs, it was hard. But looking back on it, it was a blessing. You know, like I said, everything happens for a reason. And that's really where I got thick and I got my density. Because after I got out of school, you know, within 2 years, I was pro. So it really paid off.
Yeah, we've done a couple episodes about crossing over, you know, from bodybuilding to powerlifting. And, you know, you think about like the old Muscle Beach days, those guys, they were also performance driven. You know, they weren't just like pretty and that sort of thing. So, Phil, let me ask you, I mean, with the strength scale games that you do, you're bringing in different type of performance aspects, and that seems to be part of this whole expansion, you know, beyond just stage bodybuilding is some of the different kinds of performance. You've gotten pretty creative with the different events, right?
Yeah, well, I think, like I was going to say when they were talking about it, was it's almost, you almost see bodybuilding and all these events going back to what they were before. You know, originally they would lift and do the show maybe in the same day. You know, way back, you know, it was both. They would have lifting exhibitions along with the physique exhibition, and it's smart business. I mean, bodybuilding is not that much different than powerlifting in a viewership aspect. If you just have a bodybuilding show, who's going to show up? Your girlfriend and maybe your mom, you know, and your friends. Other than that, so you bring in other stuff, and that's another sport that's doing it well is the Highland Games. You know, they wrap the games around a fair atmosphere with a bunch of other crap going on. So what happens is all these people show up for all of that, and then they end up watching some of that, and they get exposed to the sport.
That's
so you
true,
give these people multiple reasons to show up, and that also, it's money to drive the sport thing.
The first time I had heard about that was Highland Games, wasn't it? Don't they do that with that? Like you said, it's almost like a fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
No, cool.
I mean, it just makes sense, and then, you know, getting all these sports a bit closer together. There's so much fighting. In the end, we're all picking up heavy stuff. We're just doing it in different ways.
Yeah,
you know, we have a lot more in common than we have apart.
Yeah.
You know, if you're wrapped up into fitness, lifting things in general, you know, we have a lot more in common with with each other than we do the average person out there just sitting on the couch watching TV.
Right.
So
yeah, this becomes almost a gateway drug, so the average person can say, hey, like Brant said, you watch bodybuilding, or like you were saying, powerlifting, high-end stuff, that's incredibly motivating stuff. And somebody who might be not as excited about strength, and what I love, too, about strength sports and muscle sports is you can do them as adults, as grown-ups. You can continue to pursue this once the high school team sport days are gone. I know a lot of guys who used to be football players, and a lot of these guys, they're overweight and not in a good way. Their health is suffering because they really haven't done much since high school. And the fun thing about strength and muscle sports is you can do them as grown-ups, even middle-aged people and beyond. It's fun like that. Let me ask, Christine, what do you think are some of the best events to add? Because if I remember, I saw some of your marketing materials. You're almost soliciting, like, hey, what do people want? Is it better to stick with stuff that's really strength-oriented, like powerlifting or, I don't know, arm wrestling or that sort of thing? Or is it better just to go really broad and, any organization, any sport that wants involved? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, honestly, I am exploring all things, and I just think that there's so many different... The athlete, the person that gets into athletics, whether it's dance or powerlifting, they have a certain mind frame. Like, if they're going to be good, they have to work hard, they have to practice, and they can't just go once or twice and do well. And so I don't know, I really feel like we can draw from... I see it eventually being drawn from all sorts of different arts and sports and athletics. And then, and who doesn't love watching those athletes? We have the Olympics. People love watching the intensity and what these people have created. So we're exploring all sorts of things. And the face painting funhouse gym that Branch brought up, like a blow-up thing for the kids, why not bring the kids and make it a family event?
I don't know. It's I guess one of the things that I find interesting is the performance aspect, because so much with bodybuilding, they're so amazing on stage, but bodybuilding has an aspect of theater to it, and that's very cool, and it's very motivating with the music, and it's dramatic. But sometimes performance stuff, like Phil and I have talked about this before on the show, but you can miss a lift in front of everybody. Now, don't get me wrong. A bodybuilder can be out of shape, but a lot of the work is done before you're on the stage. Whereas in performance-type events, God, it's all right there, right now, make it happen or don't in a split second kind of thing, Yeah. And that does bring an exciting element to things that maybe bodybuilding doesn't in the same way, I guess.
Exactly. And I say that to athletes all day long, even, when they're training. Like, as a bodybuilder, you can go to the gym and have a crappy workout, and it really doesn't matter because you're going to get up the next day and go to the gym. But in powerlifting, it matters.
Yeah.
You need to make your numbers when you go to the gym. And so there's a different mental aspect to all of these sports, which I think is kind of creates a lot of energy. And I think that the events, whenever you go to these events, there's just energy everywhere.
Right. Branch, let me turn to you as we start to wind things down a little bit. Why now? Like, you're getting involved with Christine, of course, and doing this, expansion sort of thing. What's special about this year? Or is this just something that's long time been coming, that sort of thing?
It's something I've been working towards for a while. I started with Houston, then I did a show in Dallas. I had for second, third year to have it in Dallas, and then had a show in Omaha for a couple of years. And so it's a natural progression. As winding down my competitive career, I've been focusing more on the business side of the sport. I'm still going to always be involved in the sport and in the scene. So it's just a natural progression. When that opportunity came up, and I was like, I thought about it for about a second. I was like, yeah, that would be a good idea. And Minneapolis is a huge market, and Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I think it's just a natural progression. I just want to take what I've done, down here and bring it up there. And it's just a good time. I've been fortunate enough to have a very long career and do very well, and I built a brand, and I've got my fans are like the best fans ever. I love these guys, and so because of that, now I'm able to still stay involved in the sport, even though one day I won't be on stage flexing people anymore, but I'll still be involved in the sport that I love, and give a little something back.
No, right on. We had Bill Pearl on the show in the past, in fact, twice, and he used to say, "I don't take my shirt off anymore." It kind of half joking because, of course, I think Bill's over 80 now, but he's still such an inspiration. What a class act, what an example, that kind of stuff. He's talking about how to, Branch, you said a lot of your character, your strength and the benefits in your character were forged in bodybuilding. And, Bill Pearl does such a good job of that. And he doesn't have to flex at anybody to do that anymore, of course, so
right.
It's good stuff.
Bill Pearl got me started in bodybuilding. His book, what was it, The Art of Bodybuilding or something?
Oh, yeah, or Keys to the Inner Universe was one of his big books, I remember.
Yeah, I still have it on my bookshelf.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because he talks about character development specifically, and that's good stuff. Mm-hmm. I do want to ask one thing, though, because, Branch, you mentioned a couple times, the market is so big up in Minnesota, and I guess this question is mostly to compare what you think, Christine, versus what you think, Branch, and that is bodybuilding, we were talking about women's bodybuilding sort of shrinking over the years, is bodybuilding less popular than it was in the 90s? Is this a necessary thing to keep people involved, or... Because I know there's a lot of growth in the upper Midwest there, but across the country, like if you think about the movies and whatnot, a lot of our action heroes, they're not the Sly Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger quite to the same extent anymore. And is bodybuilding past the golden era, and do we have to expand, or am I just missing this entirely and bodybuilding is growing like crazy? Christine, what do you think?
I am not at all, like I said, I wanted to do this from the beginning, just, didn't know. I wanted to start promoting first and see how it went, and the shows themselves keep growing. And I honestly, I want to say it was the good Lord above that just said to me, "Hey, Chris, Branch, why don't you ask him?" He had just been a guest at a show I co-promote in the Fargo area, in Fargo actually, and I've kind of been picking Branch's brain and kind of seeing what kind of guy he is from different events he's attended that I've been at, and I just thought, why don't I ask him? And it really, I just think it's a cool idea to get all these things together, and the sport itself, as far as female bodybuilding, the physique sports are not dying.
Okay, no. Right, yeah. Right, I understand. In fact, in a lot of ways, the pro women that when I was like, a young man, early teenager, a lot of the figure and fitness competitors, physique women, they're much bigger and harder than even the pro women back then in the days of like Rachel McLish. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Great.
So there's Correct. We're using different words, but I like the way you put that. It's the physique sports are not going anywhere. We're just sort of we're redefining them a little bit,
Right.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, I've had this conversation. It's if I were in my 20s right now, I would not be interested in women's bodybuilding. And, just because I just don't see myself getting that big. And so, but when I was in my 20s, it was very much a thing that I looked up to and adored. So, it's unfortunate that women's bodybuilding has gotten to where it is. I mean, those physiques are incredible.
Right.
But it's just not... it doesn't appeal to the general public.
Yeah, I think it's almost an acquired taste. Like few people, I would argue few women wake up, and I don't want to sound sexist, but they say, I want to be as huge and rock granite hard as possible. But then it's a stepwise process. And then eventually you start to appreciate that, and you're like, that's incredible, kind of thing. But
right, exactly.
Branch, do you think bodybuilding is growing? Do you think the expansion is necessary to keep physique sports alive? I mean, are you disappointed at all that we've moved away from something that you love? I mean, you're a hardcore guy, so what are your thoughts on where bodybuilding is now and in the next 10 years?
Well, for a hardcore bodybuilding guy, and always will be, you go to the Mr. Olympia weekend or the Arnold Classic weekend, what's the centerpiece event of the whole show? Mm-hmm. The men's bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. You go to Mr. Olympia, there might be 30 guys and all the other athletes in the other divisions, but what is all those 20,000 people in the arena? If you got rid of the other divisions, it's still going to be men's bodybuilding. It's going to be the centerpiece of the event. Now, that being said, adding all the other divisions that they have has increased participation in the event and increased the size of all these amateur shows around the country. I mean, you're getting shows now. It's nothing to get 300, 400, 500 athletes in a show. Mm-hmm. And back then, when we were all coming up, that was unheard of. If you had 100 competitors back in the day, that was like huge.
Good point.
So, so just based on, I travel all over the world, doing the shows and guest posing and everywhere. As Christina put it very, very well, are growing tremendously. I mean, as far as bodybuilding, you said is it dying or growing? In the 90s, who was the number one movie star? Arnold. The number one movie star now is The Rock. He's a bodybuilder.
Okay.
And such wrestler. He's the highest paid actor in the world and number one box office draw. And I think he's actually putting on a bodybuilding show in LA this coming year. So he's very much involved in it and a huge fan of the sport also. So comes to a lot of the shows. So I think it's bigger than ever. I think that's because of the different divisions we brought in. And as far as women's bodybuilding, I don't really see, I take a little different spin on it. Yeah, the women's bodybuilding division, like what Chris came up in and we were all, used to, is gone. But the women's physique division is bigger than the bodybuilding division ever was. And my wife, Trish, she turned pro in fitness. And now she's competing in physique. She did her first physique show last September in Phoenix, got third. And she's training for some shows this year too. So, because that's something she looked at and she's like, I didn't want to be as big as a bodybuilder. She goes, but the physique division, she goes, I think that looks cool. And,
absolutely.
She loves being able to train like that. So for the first time in like 10 years, she's actually getting to train hard because in fitness, she couldn't get any bigger. So she really couldn't lift weights anymore, because she didn't want to get, too big and get scored down in fitness. So, now she can actually train. So, she comes to the gym. Metroflex Brian trains her, and I haven't seen him this excited to train somebody since he trained Ronnie. Like I told her, I go, he didn't get this excited he never got this excited when he trained me. Mm-hmm. But the sport's at an all-time high overall. All the physique sports, because you just look at this year, the number of shows we have. I think here in Texas we have 30 NPC amateur shows, 30. Where back in the day we had 5 or 6. So. And it's the shows are huge. I mean, I think the shows here last year one show had 800 competitors. Several shows had 600. And I go around the country. It's the same story where you go. So areas that never had shows before have shows. And so I think it continues to grow because the new divisions appeal to such a more broad range of people than just bodybuilding did.
Got you. Yep.
And I do want to say to your female listeners, and I know we're running out of time, but what Branch said, the point that he made about women's physique is true. The women love it, and it is basically what bodybuilding was when I started.
Yeah, I agree with that very much.
Because it's attainable, and like Trish said, she goes, I still want to be a woman. She goes,
right.
She goes, so they brought that look back where, a lot of people, they dig it, it's cool. I mean, she can be muscular and be strong. She can train hard, but she's still a woman, she puts a dress on and, she looks hot. She doesn't look like me in a dress.
Thank goodness.
There's a sight. Okay. Let me wrap up with this. Where would listeners go if they want to learn more about what you guys are doing together? Christine, maybe we'll start with you. Is there a website or is there a way for them to learn more about you?
We are working on all of that yet, but right now, all of the information is on my website, and we're still, brainstorming about how all that will look. But my website is, I think the easiest way to get there is teamontrack.com. Otherwise, they can, my name, ChristineBongiovanni.com. And we're going to be developing its own marketing. So on that website are all the shows that I promote. So we will be doing something different. But for right now, we've got, we're going to be developing some Facebook pages for the event, and all that, like I said, is in the process.
Gotcha. And Branch, any info you could point people to, because you have a lot of fans and a lot of our listeners are sort of that bodybuilder, powerlifter hybrid, so you're right up their alley. So anywhere they can look at for you online?
Man, you go to Facebook or Instagram. It's DBranch1 is on Facebook and Instagram, and of course my website is www.thebranch1.com. You can follow me. I've always posted something crazy online every day usually, and so the website has there'll be a link on there to send you to Christine's website to give you all the information for the Minneapolis show, as well as all my upcoming events and appearances all over the world. I think I've got 9 countries I'm scheduled for so far this year, and 13 domestic trips in addition to the shows I'm promoting. So it's going to be a busy year, so check it out, and I hope to see you out on the circuit somewhere.
Fantastic. I really appreciate you guys. That's episode 400. It's good to have a couple of pros come join us today. And like I said, Branch, I know a lot of young people that are going to be really excited to hear what you have to say. So thanks again.
Well, that's young people are key to the sport, man. We got to keep bringing those young guys and girls in, and keep the sport growing so they can have the same opportunities we all had.
Right on.
Correct.
Okay, until next week, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Hey listeners, have you seen the store at IronRadio.org? There are 3 halls in the store, one for Phil, one for Fortress, and one for myself, Dr. Lowry, and they're thematic. So you can go into our Halls of Iron store and choose based on your goal. If you need something to learn or read or something nutritional, you can look in my store, Lonnie's store. If you want something about injury prevention or competition, then take a look at Phil's Hall of Iron. And if you want something about motivation or daily training, Fortress's Hall has what you're looking for. There are some fun, heroic descriptors as you browse through the store, so we try to make it a little more fun than the average boring online store. And whether you're a novice lifter or someone more experienced, you can take heart that you're not wasting your time. The things that we put in each Hall of Iron are actually based on our own recommendations. Protein powders that we know to be good, knee sleeves, wraps of some kind, things that Fortress uses in his own training. The stuff you see, is good. This way you don't waste time. So check out the Iron Radio store at ironradio.org and let us know what you think on the forums, and certainly you can request products and we will screen them before they go in. So thanks for listening. Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the ironradio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.